Horror is an interesting part of Hollywood, as it basically is much more of ancient folktale and, well, like urban legends that are basically being told in different ways. Horror has evolved over through the years, hell, even decades, and basically it keeps getting stronger. Not nowadays though, but still. But today I'm going to talk about something really interesting. Remakes are a dime a dozen. I've recently just seen the new Candyman film, and I must say, it's actually up there with some of the newer ones. Remakes have started to get better, and that's something I would like to talk about.
I will admit that actually nowadays remakes are starting to get a little bit better. Now, sure, we do actually get some crappy ones, and those are some really pieces of garbage, but I will admit that they're starting to get a lot better. They finally cracked the code. But
You remake a film for basically to try and add something new. Hollywood doesn't see that and just sees basically you can rehash something and get money from it. That's why usually remakes were getting shittier. But then they've started to be a little better because they've managed to give more creative freedom for the storytelling. But there was also something really interesting. They remake classic horror films, like The Grudge and all that. But I was actually reminded of that they also remade much more older classics back in the 90s, and they still have been trying to this very day to crack a code. They kind of did, but let's see what they come up with.
the Universal monsters are infamous now. I actually have a few figures in my room. Thanks, James. They're infamous and are now part of pop culture.
Now I am confusing myself on the word but I am actually serious on this. Universal monsters have been influenced cinema for years. They're cult classics. So having a remake is very interesting. So let's see the remakes and reboots and whatever of the Universal monsters. Starting with the very first.
First of these ones being Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, the master of cinema, who directed The Godfather. The film still has an all-star cast, including, well, Gary Oldman, and the film was praised. It was literally praised so much that it even won an Academy Award, and that's a high honor. After this, the next horror remake was produced by Coppola, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, directed by Kenneth Branagh. This one has Robert De Niro as the monster, and it had some problems in the production. For first, there were disagreements with Kenneth Branagh's direction on the film, being a lot more egotistical. And the film did do pretty well, but it was lambasted by critics. But this didn't stop him, though, to do the next remake, Wolf, based on the Wolfman. I have no idea who directed this one, but the only thing I know is that it stars Jack Nicholson, one of the greatest actors of our time. Now, Nicholson does a pretty good performance in this, but it was received mixed reviews. Then leading to the next horror remake.
Now, this is interesting because I'm also going to mention the one that came out years later. So let's just get into it then, okay?
This being The Mummy 1999 and The Mummy 2017. See the 90s Mummy? It's actually quite good. It's a lot of fun and entertainment and really good adventure film. And spun off to have 2 sequels and a spin-off. But the 2017 one flopped hard and was lambasted by critics. It was meant to be something big, but they gave it to someone who had a too big ego for the production. And basically what led to the film being lambasted and basically was considered a failure.
Do not worry, I am going to mention about it later. I didn't want to mention it in the Mummy 2017 review, but I will get into it later. Also something with the name, but I have no idea without even be connected to something or whatever.
After 4 remakes being released, Universal definitely had... Wait, what? Columbia did the other ones?
Oh yeah. Bram Stoker's Dracula down to Wolf with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as well. They were all Columbia Pictures remakes of the Universal monsters. Universal's remake started in 1999. So, yeah, that was something I kind of forgot to add in until now. That's creepy, isn't it?
But then in 2004, Stephen Sommers, the director of The Mummy, brought us Van Helsing. A crossover event that we all wanted, except for it just joined the pile of action-packed hero who fights demons. The film stars Hugh Jackman and basically as him as Van Helsing, and basically brought in all the Universal monsters, well, almost all of them. They had the Wolfman, Frankenstein, and of course Dracula. The film did fine at the box office, but it was lambasted by critics and never really became a series.
Because of this, and also due to the declining returns of the Mummy franchise, Universal decided to try and do another franchise, and basically decided to remake another classic, but this time for their own instead of Columbia.
2010, Joe Johnston, the director of Jumanji, took his stand at basically the Universal monster classic, The Wolfman. The film flopped at the box office, although having really good actors and really good effects. So this never really went anywhere.
Now we get into the moment that you've all been waiting for. The Dark Universe failure.
And they then tried it with Dracula Untold, which kind of did fine at the box office. Then there was also Victor Frankenstein and I Am Frankenstein, which were not really Universal films. Guillermo del Toro, interestingly, was actually going to make the Dark Universe's first film. He was also going to make a Justice League Dark film, which was going to be called Dark Universe, but suing and all that stuff, and he left the project. Finally, the Dark Universe was released with The Mummy and failed. Funny thing is that actually Guillermo del Toro made his version of The Creature from the Black Lagoon. You could count it as a remake, but it's a lot more different. Maybe even a loose remake. But it is very much a love story and did actually win an Academy Award. That is such a low point that you can't even believe it. But the film was actually well received and was a lot more better, so that was kind of a mess up. Until now in 2020, when The Invisible Man was just released by Lee Winnell. This one was actually well received, and it's not like the original film from the 50s, I believe, or 60s, but has a lot more different tone to it and being a lot more technological. And now here we are. The film was a humongous hit, and basically now they're going in this with Blumhouse's next production, which is going to be The Wolfman. I'm excited to see what they do with this one. But this is where we've led up to now. Now we've finally been told.
And here we are now. Now I do understand what Universal was trying to do, try and revamp their old Universal Monsters classics, even with Columbia kind of helping. But it didn't really work out until now, where they finally The Invisible Man is became a big hit, and now they can be able to figure out how to do it. But this was a very good, interesting look at the history of trying to bring back these cult classics. So anyway, this was the newest video, and I'll see you soon on the next one, hopefully.